Hi Aileen, it's nice of you to join us with Know My Life. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. We've been working together for the last year or two now on the Lisa Harnum Foundation, and it's been an absolute honour to share your vision with me, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to now talk about how Lisa Harnum Foundation came, what your background is, what your passion is around this, and where you'd like to take the Lisa Harnum Foundation.
Lovely.
So maybe if we start, how did the Lisa Harnum Foundation come about from you?
Well, I guess it's a bit of a long story. I worked with women in domestic violence as a chaplain for a large organisation. They were very high-end domestic violence clients, and I got a lot out of supporting those women through very, very hard times. I stepped down from that role as a chaplain after 10 years working in the community just for a break, and with the mind of going back into some sort of pastoral role after a 6-month break. But to be quite honest, as a Christian, God really had his hand on me for some reason, and I discovered through being part of a network, a committee on domestic violence, that there were literally no services in the hills for women who were going through some form of abuse. There was a refuge that was being run by the Sisters of Mercy for over 20 years, but they couldn't afford to continue anymore, so that closed down, and nobody was doing anything. Nobody was jumping up and down. Nobody was banging on the politicians' doors and making a noise about it. And I couldn't believe that there was nothing here, and that it's a complete myth that domestic abuse doesn't happen in the hills because it's the hills. So really God got onto my case and just kept on and on about setting up a service, and sort of gave me this vision to set up a service in the hills. And so I caved in eventually, and I just wrote the vision out. I gathered a few people in my house to talk to them about it, people who had some knowledge of domestic violence or had worked in the services in some way or other. And so they basically said, just get on with it then. And before I knew it, we were registered as a not-for-profit, and you know, I thought, okay, this is pretty serious now. I've got to get really serious about this. So the vision was initially to provide information and support, counselling and group work to women who were going through some form of domestic abuse. So that's how it started. Then we had to think of a name, and Lisa Harnum had always sort of been on my heart for some reason. I followed the court case of Lisa and her then fiance Simon Gattani because it was so dramatic, and so Lisa's name was always there, and the fact that she died in such a horrific way really sat with me. So in the end, I had to track her mum down, who lived in Canada, and I did that through the police who dealt with the case. And before I knew it, Joan Harnum was absolutely delighted that Lisa's name was going to be used, because then Lisa's name was never ever going to be forgotten.
No.
So that's why we called it the Lisa Harnum Foundation.
That's fantastic. It's such an important aspect to our community to have that resource. There's times where I've wished and wished that there was that resource, and didn't know where to look, didn't know how to find help, didn't know how to label anything around this space. I think there's a lot of people that are talking about domestic violence now. One thing that I struggled with was, how does Lisa Harnum Foundation differ from some of the other services around?
Well, that's a good question, because we often get confused with being a crisis support service when we're not. We mainly work as an outreach service in the community, so not every woman needs to go into supported accommodation like a refuge, for instance. They can be supported in the community, and they can be given, the right advice and information that they need in order for them to make a decision. So the way we differ is that we provide also transitional housing, which is a step up from refuge crisis supported accommodation. So transitional housing provides women with up to 6 months accommodation where they can plan ahead to re-enter the community. So we're not crisis, we're transitional, but we also provide a range of outreach services, which, as I said in the beginning, was information, support, counselling, casework, group work and education.
Yeah, and to that point, if 1 in 3 women have experienced domestic violence, which is just an horrific number.
It is. It is.
What would you see as the major target for how we can minimise this in the future? How do we start making any sort of tangible marks into community?
Simply put, education is key in knocking this scourge off the planet. The government can put as much money as they like into, crisis accommodation, etc. And unfortunately, we do need money for crisis accommodation. But in order to just really stop the cycle of domestic violence, there's education. And that's where we need to go into schools and get into educating our young people in terms of what is a healthy relationship. Where are the boundaries, that sort of thing. My mum, for instance, she came from an abusive home. Her mother was an alcoholic and her father died when she was very young. So my mum thought that was normal behaviour. So when she got married and she had 6 children, me being the eldest, I was the one that was abused quite a bit. But she didn't, as I got older, I realised that she didn't know any different. And this is why we have to get into the schools, teach young people about what healthy relationships are all about. And it's just key, it's integral to really reducing domestic violence. And to this end, the Lisa Harnum Foundation, we have youth ambassadors. So in some of the high schools, we work with the youth ambassadors in a very subtle way where they can fundraise within their school, but also the young people in the school get to know about the foundation and what it's all about, because you can bet your bottom dollar that a lot of those children are living in homes where there is domestic abuse. And I call it domestic abuse because if I call it domestic violence, people automatically think physical, sexual, when there are other forms of domestic abuse. The most prolific abuse in the hills, I would say, is emotional and financial. But there's also the psychological, social isolation, and also the spiritual abuse as well.
I think talking about the signs of domestic abuse, domestic violence is really important for us. I've been in relationships and, I struggled to label what was going on for me, and seeing the way people can belittle you, they can make you feel very easily that you're less than worthy of breathing. You may not have the physical bruises that everyone can see, but it's the emotional turmoil, the fear of walking, the fear of breathing, the fear of everything that you're going to do wrong. It's just horrific. I think something that I've struggled with over the years is seeing friends and family that have also gone through this. It's not just easy to say you've got to get out of this relationship. I think that's the hardest time. How would you help a friend help their friend who was having these signs?
I think emotional abuse, firstly, is the worst type of abuse because you can't see the bruises, you can't see the scars, and those bruises are internal, so they stay there for a very long time. I think the greatest thing that a friend can do is just listen as well, really listen and support that friend. It's no good saying, well, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
She may have children. Where's she going to go to? She might not have access to the finances, to the bank account, for instance.
Yeah.
So what's she going to do? And she might think, well, this is my lot. This is where I have to stay for the rest of my life. But with the foundation's help, she can be supported and she can be listened to. She can be given advice so where she can decide on what her options are and what she wants to do. So, you know, it's just having access to the right help. But being listened to is really, really important. But finding the right professional help is key. Domestic violence is just a very specialised area.
Yeah. You know, what it is specialised. It's so hard and confronting.
Yeah.
In my situation, I've wanted to tell my closest friends and family 100 times over, but I know that would make things even worse for what was going on. It's such a lonely environment to be in, and to be able to seek help, and even the initiatives that the Lisa Harnum Foundation has got, where you've got like Castle Towers support, where there's a discreet location for women to go and seek professional help without looking like it's an obvious, you know, going to a psychologist or a doctor's clinic. I think that's a great credit to the community to be able to support such an environment.
Yeah, well, we see that as really a great initiative and a very important outreach service where women can access the help in a very discreet and safe way. Because as you say, you know, it is very isolating. If you tell your friends, they may not understand, because your husband may look the perfect person on the outside. He may be a professional in the community and is highly regarded. I mean, you know, perpetrators come from all walks of life. They're not just the old, you know, garbage man down the road. The garbage man down the road is probably the best person, but honestly, you know, perpetrators can be lawyers, they can be doctors, they can be psychologists, they can even be counsellors. They can come from any profession and be well regarded. And so you, as the victim, would say, well, who's going to believe me? Who's going to believe me that this guy does these things, says these things, makes me feel like I'm, you know, a piece of crap, basically. You know, and it's so hard for the woman to take that first step to go and trust someone and to talk to them about their situation. And even when you decide to leave, that is the most dangerous time ever, when the woman decides to leave. This is what happened to Lisa Harnum.
Those symptoms, those signs are so common. And it doesn't matter if it's a husband, if it's you're dating somebody, these things just come up, and people women get involved in a relationship and they don't see the signs, and they get attached and they can't walk away for fear or for the fact that he'll apologise and promise it'll never happen again.
So common.
Really,
So common is that pattern. I never do it again. I'll never lay a finger on you again. I'll never call you names again. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. And within a couple of weeks, we're back to square one. And this can happen, I think statistically they say, at least 7 times over before she decides, that's it, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to leave. I'm going. This is the end.
So I think, you know, giving people an option, being a friend, giving them trust in that relationship to open up and not judge is really critical.
Oh, absolutely.
How do we help and move through with the Lisa Harnum Foundation? Where to from here?
With the caseworker, her role is to plan the route ahead, if you like. So in consultation with the woman who's come for help, the caseworker will give her information. And so she can think about, well, what are my options? So it could be she needs to see a lawyer, or she needs financial advice, or any of those things, especially if everything is signed over to the husband, for instance. She might think, well, I won't be able to get anything from the sale of the house, or he's hidden money and I don't know where, to find that sort of money. And by going to a family law solicitor, which we have on board, she will soon find out that she has access to a lot of things that she didn't think she had access to before. And so that creates an opportunity for her to think, oh, okay, well, I will be able to maybe move ahead and make a life for myself. Maybe the kids have grown up, maybe they've gone to uni, any of those things, and she's just about had it.
Yeah.
So she can plan with the caseworker what she wants to do and how she's going to move out. And that's the best way to do it, in conjunction with a professional caseworker.
I think it's really important, and it's not just about having the accommodation, but it's the services to give you support.
Exactly.
But it's and as you say, that the hardest time, the most dangerous time is that leaving time.
Yep.
But it's also the journey. I love that Lisa Harnum Foundation isn't just about that crisis support, it's the long journey that takes. And I think you and I can both attest to a long transformation as a result of any of these sort of experiences. It takes a long time, and to have someone there to support you that knows about this is really important. So Aileen, it's the why story, it's the how. How are you going to grow? How are you going to make so much difference in the community? Where do you think we can go to now?
We have a great plan ahead for 3 years. We've just signed off on a strategic plan. Our number one priority is education. Education is definitely the key in breaking the cycle of domestic violence, and that's where we want to start. We also want to outreach to other areas within Sydney that have limited resources available to them. In fact, I had a phone call from somebody on the Northern Beaches who said there is absolutely nothing here. Is there something you can do to help? So that's on my mind, to be able to outreach to maybe the Northern Beaches. I also would like to see in the next few years that the foundation is planted in regional areas as well, because the outreach services are integral, I think, for women to be able to access. As I said before, not all women need to go into a refuge or even into transitional housing, but they can be supported in the community. But education is number one key priority, and that's where we want to work very, very closely with the schools, with the local schools, in order for that to happen. And I'm hoping that the government will recognise that this is really important, and this is where we need to start work. And so hopefully that will be how the Lisa Harnum Foundation becomes well known for its push in the community to educate young people and even other people, people who, as you say, you don't realise you're in an abusive relationship until you gain knowledge of what the signs are and how you've been treated, etc. So, once you're educated, you get that insight into these behaviours, then you have that sort of aha moment and things can change dramatically.
What's the Lisa Harnum Foundation doing to help achieve these core objectives?
In order to achieve these objectives, we have the youth ambassadors in about 5 high schools, which I think is a good start, where we can bring in education. We're also engaging with another organisation who have already developed programs to educate young people in terms of healthy relationships. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we're in current discussion with that organisation to possibly put their programs into the schools, and we will subsidise that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you've got a software program to help support women in an emergency?
We not so much as we have a a phone app,
Yeah.
which is available national. It's called Buzz News, and it looks like a normal news feed. And so if the perpetrator is used to checking his partner's phone, he'll just think it's a news feed. It's updated all the time through Google. So it has entertainment news, sports news, national headlines, etc. But in the help section, that's where she can put her trusted contacts. And she might have a pre-prescribed message that says, this is a time we spoke about. So if she's in a situation that is threatening, all she has to do is open the app, tap the bar 3 times, and that message will go through to her safe contacts and give a geographic location. And it will also record what's happening in the room for about 30 seconds.
Fantastic.
So we developed that some time ago with the help of donations. And we're quite proud of it, actually. It's quite a good tool to use, and a very well disguised tool as well.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You've got community events happening to help fundraise for some of
Yeah,
these?
I know. Look, we're very blessed with the community in terms of the support that we've received. Rotary have been absolutely amazing, and 3 Rotary clubs are supporting us in one way or another. And the Cherrybrook Lions, well, I have to take my hat off to them, because they decided they wanted to put a masquerade ball on to help fund us. And so that's what they're doing. They're expecting 300 people on April the 1st and at the Pioneer Room at the Castle Grand in Castle Hill, and I'm just blown away by their generosity.
There's a few seats left?
Oh yes, there's a few seats left, so people should go to Eventbrite very quickly and reserve their seats. I think it's going to be a really fun night, but the nice thing is I don't have to do anything but just turn up, so I'm really happy about that. Because, you know, putting on these events is hard work, and as you can probably see, I've been through, I'm having chemo at the moment, so you know, I've had a bit of a cancer scare, and so that's slowed me down a little bit, not too much. I can still keep things going, but I do have a good support team. I do have a good board, and they've been very supportive, so I'm very blessed in that way.
So the key for me, and the reason I keep donating every month, is because I want you to grow. I want this to be so successful.
Yeah.
I know how much it's helped so many women and men, and definitely children along this journey. How can more people help the Lisa Harnum Foundation to achieve these really cool goals that are going to make a difference?
Well, donations, it's really important, of course, because we are not in receipt of any government funding right now. So, you know, corporates out there, if they want to donate, that would be lovely. But to donate on a regular basis to some money would be amazing. But also it's important for people if they want to volunteer, for instance. There are lots of people out there that sometimes have spare time, and they have lots of gifts and talents that they can, you know, bring to the table. So they can go to our website, and there's a page there where they can send us a message. And our website's www.lisahf.org.au.
Fantastic. And I think even sharing that message with the corporates of the world, if 1 in 3 of your women in your workplace are experiencing domestic violence, there's a real call for help within organisations that should be, you know, reaching their strategic plans to impact and support their staff, their women, their men who are going through this transition, and to reach out to the Lisa Harnum Foundation to get some expert help on how to achieve some of those goals and how to partner with these great strategic objectives that we've got.
Oh, absolutely. And more organisations are recognising the fact that they've implemented domestic violence leave for women and for men who are going through, say, court cases and things like that. And I've read in when I've sort of researched those companies, not one person, not one staff member has abused that leave. They have used that genuinely for the situation that they're in, and more companies are coming on board with that, and I think that's fantastic. But as you say, it would be lovely for for those corporates, for those companies to access help from the Lisa Harnum Foundation and maybe partner with us so that we can work hand in hand to help their staff through their journey.
No, that's fantastic. So what was the website again?
www.lisahf.org.au.
Fantastic. Aileen, it's been an absolute honour to talk with you today. I've learned a lot, but your message, your heart, your passion for helping, especially the Hills area, but hopefully everywhere, to grow some awareness around domestic abuse is just so wonderful. And I hope there's more people around that will share that vision and talk to you and your team in the next little while to grow that. So
well, thank you very much. It's been a delight talking to you too.
Thank you.